Whoa.
Hi, Brenda Geiger with the Wellness Whisperer. Welcome to today's episode titled How Our Need for Pristine Living in the United States is Slowly Killing Us. We love our green grass. We love living next to golf courses with pristine, beautiful views. And we love going to the supermarket and picking up a box of cornflakes or corn chips to go with our chili. However, that all comes with a cost. To produce this beauty and to produce the amount of food that we need, we use 1 billion pounds of pesticides annually in the United States. These are toxic pesticides. We need those to keep the pests off the 350 million tons of corn that we grow every year. And that's just corn. And this was a shocking fact to me. We love our golf courses so much. There's gazillions of them. We have 16,156 golf courses in the United States, and that's compared to 3,100 in the UK. Pesticides are now found in the urine of 4 out of 5 people tested. And I cite a study in this episode from the NEJM study that even microplastics are finding their way into our plaque in our bodies in a study. So let's dive into how environmental toxins are slowly killing us and how we can take a stand against that. Hi, and welcome to the Wellness Whisperer. Today we are with Lindsay Goddard in Florida, and we are going to talk about how to avoid toxins in our air, in our food, and in our home, which is a big deal. This is a little bit about Lindsay. Lindsay Goddard is a registered licensed dietitian with a master's in nutrition and bachelor's degree in biology with a concentration in human physiology and ecology. That's a lot of OGs. She is a medical license liaison with Fullscript, and she's currently being an overachiever, getting her graduate certificate in toxicology, which makes this even more pertinent to what Lindsay has to share with us. So welcome, Lindsay. Thank you for joining the Wellness Whisperer. I just introduced you with all your phenomenal schooling, but what, in your opinion, makes you qualified to talk about toxic exposure in our world, in your opinion?
So, you mentioned earlier, like my undergraduate degree. Well, when I was studying ecology in undergrad, I actually was doing research in phosphate mines and some of the environmental impacts there. And then with a degree in nutrition, I'm able to understand the nutrients and how to support the system with exposures. And then prior to my experience with Fullscript, I spent almost 5 years evaluating toxicology reports and helping physicians and other medical providers be able to understand where they were coming from, the effects on the system, and have a lot of experience in just hearing the stories and like where that was coming from and interpreting the data. And that was toxicants, like the industrial toxins in our environment, heavy metals, and other biological toxins.
Yes. I'm going to reach for a book that I'm finishing because my next question for you is why are toxins such a big deal in our world now? Why are we talking more about it than we did, 10, 20, 30 years ago, in your opinion?
I think probably like education and attention. So, and this is just my take on it. Other people certainly have theirs. But a lot of people, a lot of times when companies develop things, right, they have an idea of maybe what the events that'll happen after that gets dispersed, but they don't always anticipate all of the things that can go wrong. And how can you really? And so I think now we're starting to see some of the aftermath of the effects of these toxicants that were used that they thought were going to be helpful. And they turned out to they were helpful at that for that very specific reason, but then they had cascading effects.
Mhm.
So now people are becoming more educated. They're getting a lot more information. It's a lot easier to obtain. And now, once you start getting people aware, things change, right? How are the people?
And reading this book, Kiss the Ground by Josh Tickle, and it's
Ah,
pretty deep, but it's really about how our food system has changed, how there's 50 billion times more pesticides and glyphosate on our grass, which gets in our water. And it's fascinating because it really takes you through that. It starts in the ground, and what we've done to contaminate our own earth and soil is harming us as human beings. So I recommend anyone that is trying to connect the dots to maybe pick up a copy of that. um, we live in the United States. I'm in Kansas City, and Lindsay is in Florida. And we live in a great world, but it seems like our country may not be the best watchdogs for our personal health. What what is your take on that? Because I'm always reading, um, checking my labels with the Environmental Working Group,
mhm.
and seeing things that are allowed in my shampoos and conditioners and foods that are banned in Europe.
Yeah. I know Europe's kind of like taken the way. They win. um, but here, you know, again, I think it's like an education thing. And, believe it or not, there's still people here that want us to be using coal and they want to live on golf courses that are pristine. And, you know, if the public didn't want it and they were a better advocate, I feel like there would be a lot more change. I think that's one perspective.
Mhm.
But then the other is we're still a little bit behind on things. And although our country is wonderful and it has a lot of things we're ahead in, um, I think some environmental standards were a little bit behind. We're not as behind as, say, like India and China, you know, but there's still a lot more education and work to be done.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective that is so basic. You know, if it's we have to take responsibility for what we're driving in the world, and if we want a luxury mansion on a golf course, and developers sense that and see the profit of that and keep plowing down more trees to build more pristine golf courses, which have to be just totally covered in pesticides and substances, then that's our fault. And I'll have to look that up, how many golf courses are in the UK, because you don't really hear about it that much. You
Yeah,
certainly hear about it in the we're just all about golf here in the United States, it seems like.
yeah, and like, what do we want, right? Like, some of it is like very embedded in our culture of like we want these big things, we want material things, we want pristine. Well, that kind of comes with a price. And so you kind of have to figure out what's important as a society.
Right, right. I have a little bitty house on a great big yard, and I really want to plant more Midwest friendly plants for attracting the bees and the birds, and get rid of the yard because it's just a big money suck. And of course, I'm trying to educate my husband not to use to use natural substances, which don't do perhaps as good a job as keeping the dandelions down or whatnot, but it's definitely harmful. And I have huge allergies and have been recovering from some toxin exposure myself. And I'm just very sensitive when that's sprayed.
Absolutely. And that's something that is really big, and people kind of poo poo it or they don't believe in it. And it's like, oh, it's very real. If you've had a pretty massive exposure to something or your system is already sensitized because of a previous exposure, you're much more sensitive to everything else.
Hmm. And then you feel sorry for these little kids that are going to school and going out for recess if everything around the school district is being sprayed with herbicides and pesticides and they have asthma or allergies. And the mom and dad probably don't connect the dots that maybe they should go to a PTA meeting and say, let's look at a different option here.
Yes, it's
Or
okay to have some weeds on that place.
yeah, exactly. So let's go inside the house. Your air quality inside of your house is very important. And with houses being built so tight these days, they always say, um, people that are environmentalists say, open the window in the spring, let some fresh air in. So what toxins are hiding in our house overall?
It's a big topic. So I usually start from like room to room. So it's like, thinking about our bedrooms, like if you got a new mattress, new furniture, new carpet, all of that is off gassing, which is why it's so important to let your home breathe. Um, Things that we're using and our cleaning. So, like our bathrooms, like what are we using to clean that? What are we using to clean our laundry? What are we using to clean our dishes? Something I don't think a lot of people think about, but it's like, okay, you just put that Cascade or the liquid detergent in the dishwasher, and then you smell the plates afterwards, and you've got that smell to it. Well, like that's some sort of toxicant that you're inhaling, and now you're eating off of cookware. So people have been told for years, like, the nonstick is great. Well, no, now we know nonstick is not great. So what do you use? Stainless steel? Well, that actually has, aluminum and tin in it. And so you could be getting exposures there. So like I usually recommend like cast iron for that as long as you don't have the hemochromatosis. And then like people want their houses to smell fresh, right? So they're using the
Air
uh,
fresheners.
thank you. The air fresheners, like the the Glades and everything. And I'm like, you don't need that. You could take a bottle of water with like a little bit of a carrier oil and some essential oil that you like and spray it, and it smells great.
Yeah, if you look down any home goods store or Pier One or wherever you go, there's just loads of candles that you're probably receiving as gifts that have artificial scents and substances in them. And if you really wanted to be cognizant, you probably, I don't even know if buying a soy candle would be helpful if it still had an artificial scent. Probably not.
It would just be it would be dependent on what they're using for the scent.
Mhm.
Essential oils are expensive, so so people don't want to buy the $60 candle.
Right, right. All right, so we're going to go through the home room by room. So we'll put that on the side burner for now. If a patient were to come to you as a nutritionist or just wanting some support and they're having unusual symptoms, what would be the symptoms you would look into that tip you off that they're having a toxic exposure of some sort?
Mhm. Dermatological is probably the big one, right? You say you look at like different changes in the skin. I started breaking out in this rash, and I can't really tell why. Um, Changes in respiratory and sinus issues that are not seasonal. Changes in their gastrointestinal system. So, like, oh, I've kind of developed this intolerance to this food, and like I've always been able to tolerate it, and now I can't. Changes in mood and behavior. Got this strange, anxious feeling. I've never been an anxious person. It just kind of came on all of a sudden. There was no problem in my life that triggered it. Um, and and then like when you kind of do a review if they've changed where they're living or where they're working and tie that all in together, and it's like, yeah. And then they've become sensitive to their environment. So like we were just earlier discussing, like I can't be around like smells anymore. It makes me sick. I can't even go on an airplane anymore. I get sick. At that point, I'm like, okay, we really need to evaluate your home or a place that you spend a significant amount of time in.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's that change that something's happened. They bought a new mattress or they've moved into a new office building that probably has locks in the paint or whatnot. Something has spurred it. And I
Mhm.
like that you mentioned the skin being given you a sign. Because a lot of people would just go buy cortisol cream or cortisone cream and start rubbing that on it. They've got an itch, or thinking that a pet might have spurred that. But it more than likely is your body reacting to something in the air, something in the water, something in your food that's triggering those skin eruptions, be it a rash, or would acne be a sign or not?
It can be if it's acute. So
Mhm.
if it's recent onset and it was rapid, or it's not something that is kind of typical. Like if you had acne through your teens and now you're having adult acne, it probably wouldn't be a trigger for me to think that way. But if you were like, it's weird, like I just all of a sudden started breaking out on my back. I haven't really changed laundry detergents. I haven't really done anything different. I'm not in like a new sport or extra sauning, I kind of like trigger just from like my own personal experience. I got new earrings for my earrings, like right here. And all of a sudden, I broke out in hives in my entire back. And then it started traveling like down the back of my arms, down the back of my legs. My husband and I were like, where is this coming from? And I was like, you know what? I bought these new earrings and I bet they're not like real gold, they're plated.
Mhm.
Now, boom, all
Oh,
gone.
yeah. Good solving the mystery, because a lot of people, yeah, you don't connect it.
It's hard.
Yeah. So, full disclosure, Lindsay and I used to work together at Great Plains Laboratory, which does functional medicine testing. They've changed their name to Mosaic Diagnostics. And you were in the education division, really helping educate patients and providers with tests that might reveal what's happening inside the body. So if a person were to suspect that they were having, their body was struggling with toxic exposure of some sort, what type of tests can they order, either through a provider or through themselves?
Yeah, you can order a urine tox panel. Um, they don't, require provocation unless you're doing metals. So like if you're just looking at chemicals and mycotoxins and like other biological toxins, you can use urine. Um, and I would just recommend you being currently exposed. It's not going to pick up if you had an exposure like, you know, 10 years ago, but you're still having ramifications. It needs to be current or very recent.
Mhm.
And then if it's a metal that you're concerned about, I usually recommend hair for patients, just kind of a general view so you can just kind of get an idea. And then if you find something, you may need to follow up with like a urine specimen.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in here. You need to, if you want the guidance of a professional such as Lindsay, you need to look for someone that understands environmental toxins. There's a whole field of medicine occurring now, environmental medicine, because it is such an issue and impacting so many people. It would be, and jump in, Lindsay, if you agree, it would be my advice not just to pick up your phone and call your primary care physician, who's really just checking your pulse and your blood work and your heart and your hearing and just the basic vitals. They're probably not going to be able to guide you. You're going to need to find someone that understands toxin exposure and what to look for and what to test you for.
Absolutely. Because I mean, physicians can't know everything. And so that's why there's specialties to a degree. And
Mhm.
there is a whole academy of environmental medicine for that.
Mhm.
And there's another one. It's the American Advancement in Medical, oh gosh, ACAM,
Mhm.
ACAM. I think. Is it okay if
Mhm.
I look at
Yeah,
real
sure.
quick? Okay, because I wrote it down and I was like, oh, American College for Advancement in Medicine is the other one that I really, really like. A lot of good physicians and other providers on there that work pretty closely with environmental toxins, and then the International Society for Environmentally Acquired Illness.
What's the abbreviation for that one, Lindsay?
That one
ICEA.
is ISEAI.
Yeah, I always call that one ICEA.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I know some doctors that are on the board for that, and it's become their total mission to guide people through this very complex, because it's not something that you can just go in and have probably, one simple test. You're really going to have to do some history intake and look at every piece of your life and your work life and what's in your car, because it could be triggered from anywhere. So let's go through room by room. Let's start with plumbing. The plumbing in your apartment, the plumbing in your house, because I know that I live at a very old house built in 1934 that it has some PVC pipes, but it still has some galvanized spouts coming into our house, which could have lead in it. So probably your plumbing would be something to explore.
Very much so. And you can get a simple water test to evaluate your water. I usually either use my tap score or watercheck.com. Those are two really good ones that I like. And you can do well water, you can do city water, and they have different levels depending on what your needs are.
So it's probably pretty inexpensive. You just take a sample in and pay, $20 to $50, or what would you say the range is?
Those are kind of expensive. Those
Okay.
are like 200 and up, maybe.
Okay.
If you wanted to do a simple basic water test, your local county extension will do it, and the health department will do it. And so every county and every state in the United States has a co-op extension, which is an extension of the agricultural university within that state. So like for example, like in Florida, we have University of Florida. The extension services are in each county, and then you can go there and you can actually it's like a group of scientists that they have on staff that you have access to. So they have like nutrition, soil health, water quality. It just kind of depends on the needs of the county, but awesome resource, and it's completely free.
Right. So if you're on a budget, it sounds like Lindsay is recommending that you go to your local county or health department if you're in need of immediate testing and your budget not as budget sensitive and have a couple $100 or more. You can take it to my tap score. What was the first one you mentioned? What was the first company?
Water check.
Water check.
That's I don't remember what the like national water testing laboratories, but then my tap score is the other one.
So if you have a home filtration system, whether it's on your whole water tank or just in your kitchen, how much is that going to provide an assurance that you're not getting exposed to lead or carcinogens that are in your water?
I think it's a good first step. I think anything is helpful. But that's kind of the good part about testing your water, because depending on what you find is which filter you get. If you kind of want to do a catch for all and like do everything, usually the best bet is reverse osmosis plus carbon filtration. Carbon filtration is like your Brita, or some people like Berkey, or whatever you like for a carbon filter. You can easily get like water spigot filtrations, and they have like shower head ones too. But if you need that additional step, the RO is usually either under the sink. You can sometimes get whole house water RO filters. They're really pricey, and it can really affect your water pressure in some instances. So some people don't want to do that. So it just kind of depends.
So a soft water filter probably has nothing to do with your safety of toxins. That's just going to soften it. So you're going to have to go a step further.
Yep.
All right. So that's plumbing and water. Air in your house. I know that we have some air filters or air filtering systems in each room, but what do you recommend to have the safest air that your children are breathing in your house?
My number one thing is being clean, making sure you're dusting. there's so many things that can attach to those dust particles that no matter how nice your um, air purifier is, or you have the UV light and the AC, if you have a dusty home, that's going to be the biggest problem. So I always say, like, make sure like you're dusting like once or twice a week. Well, once a week, or at least once every other week. Um, and then the air purifiers are really important. And making sure your AC unit's clean.
Okay.
So
Yeah, good points. Because I was painting my front door for spring this weekend, going with pink. And because I was down on the ground and taking the door sweep off and getting to places that I never look at, I saw, oh my gosh, look at all the dust bunnies down here and the crap in the door sweep. And I ended up doing all my baseboards because I just don't look there enough to see that it's really collecting, even though we do vacuum and, mop. It's just an area that can get build up.
100%. That's like one of my investments is I have a cleaning person that comes once a month, and she helps me do a deep clean of the house once a month. So we have a dog, bunny, bird, like it's bound to get disgusting. So I think having a clean space is probably one of your best bets.
Yeah, such a basic thing, but we're all time strapped, as we know. So yeah, getting help and doing that deep clean is doesn't happen that often because we only have so much bandwidth as a person. I know that I'm probably going to get rid of my long drapes. I have long drapes that, according to my decorator, they should puddle at the ground. Well, puddling at the ground means that my cat hair collects in them in mass. And we're constantly running the vacuum cleaner over those ends. And it's like, why are we doing this? Let's just get blinds or go with short curtains.
Yeah, and flooring, right? Like carpet is going to hold a lot more. It feels nice.
Hmm.
Um, but maybe a washable rug that
Hmm.
you can use would be more better, because all of that stuff gets kicked up in the air.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So keeping it clean, having an air filter.
Mhm.
Um, if you do buy new furniture, are you recommending that you let it offset in the driveway before you bring it in the house, or just have the windows open, or what recommendations?
That one's always tough because you don't want to put it outside, right? Because then like the pollen can get on it depending which year and like which climate. Like I could never do that because I live in Florida. It's not dry enough ever. Um, so I either like will tell people like maybe ask the person that you're buying it from if they can store it in the warehouse and keep it open, or if you have a storage unit, you can open it there, or in like the garage and just like let it sit for a little bit. And just kind of depending on what the space is like and what you have access to. But yeah, it would be ideal if you could just let it air out for a little bit. Maybe buy in the spring so you can open up the windows and the doors to let things flow.
Hmm. I know that we, in my old house, we took out the attic fan. Um, for one reason, hardly anyone ever uses it, but it was just another way to stir up dust in the house. It wasn't really helping. So I'm sure that you probably agree that that was removed. Um,
Yeah.
um, let's talk about cleaning items. When you were like Mrs. Cleaver back in the 50s on Leave It to Beaver, I mean, probably bleach and Clorox and harsh cleaners were just the norm in a house. What are some substances that, or even liquid plumber, that are just toxic for us to have near our bodies or our noses?
Yeah. Toxic for us, our home, and the environment. And, I think something that people just don't necessarily pay attention to, they're very concerned about how it affects their bodies, but they don't always like take that step further of like thinking how bad it is for our environment, like the book you're reading with the
Soil.
soil, right? So like what you flush down the toilet is going to get into our water system. And so you using those harsh chemicals down your toilet, it's going to get into our water system, and not every water filtration system is going to be able to fix that. So, and then that's going to harm our animals. And then, the animals in the water that we're eating comes back to haunt us. So I try to tell people, like, if you're using cleaning agents, if you have to use harsh chemicals, please be careful and be mindful of like how that affects the rest of the way it goes down, right? So like when people use bleach, like don't pour it down the toilet. Perchlorates stay a while in the water system. Um, Pour it on like a cement surface or something where it's not running off into our waterways. But for cleaning, vinegar, hydrogen peroxide work really, really well on a lot of things. You can do like vinegar infusions where you take, like a peel of a citrus and you soak it in some vinegar for a little while, and then you have like a nice smelling vinegar if you don't like the vinegar smell. I try to also recommend, like, if you can get away with it, like having your own detergent that you can wash your fabrics and stuff in. Um, you can make like granite cleaners and stovetop cleaners with like vodka, essential oils, and Castile soap. Castile soap is really great. Um, I do think there are times for bleach. I don't say like never ever use it because I know I have 3 men that live in my house, and and there are sometimes I need bleach, but I am very cautious about how I use it and how I dispose of it. Always using gloves because your fingers and your hands, like, your skin is a barrier, but it can absorb a lot. Uh, so then that gets into your system. I remember a woman, it was one of actually Dr. Shaw's stories, but how he's tell good stories.
Mhm.
And she would spray her sheets with bleach and then lay down in them.
Oh.
And she had like terrible levels of perchlorate. And so that can really absorb into your skin. So you just have to be careful if you choose to use those things when you have to.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize that I don't believe this conversation. I mean, we're not being tree huggers and just being hippies. This is just Americans, everyone are getting sicker by the day with mystery illnesses that we have to turn this around because you could go through your whole life and not realize that you are reacting to a bleach or a toxic product that you're using. I know when I get out of the shower, sometimes when I don't use my all natural shampoo, because I have severe allergies, my eyes will be swollen and red all the way around like a raccoon. Because if there's 47 ingredients in a shampoo, I react to that. There's usually phenyl oxyl ethanol, and these preservatives that aren't healthy. They create respiratory issues.
No, and
So you have to, we're not being tree huggers. We're just saying we want you to be well and we want your kids to be well. And in order to do that, there's just small little modifications that we can make in our purchasing that can make us healthier.
100%. Like, my husband is an environmental scientist, and he's out there like working in, water quality and soil quality. And he's like, and soil restorations. And he's like, it's so hard to like fix some of the things that businesses do and like people will do that contaminate the soil, contaminate the water system that he has to go in and fix.
Mm.
So it's interesting, he was telling me one of like the hardest sites to clean up is a laundry service, dry cleaning.
Ah,
Like the toxins they use are so heavy, they stay in the soil, they get in the water. It's really difficult to clean up an area post laundry.
oh, that's fascinating. I'll have to look into that. But it absolutely makes sense. I mean, it's I don't take anything to the dry cleaners anymore because I'm a freelancer and my husband did my laundry. He loves doing laundry and it was all laid out on the bed. I'm very lucky. But I was like, oh look, I have 14 t-shirts. I don't wear any my wardrobe went down drastically. But I do remember picking up the dry clean and how horrible it smelled. Just potent. Yeah. So that's very, very sad. Um, I'm going to put a lot of notes in the YouTube video and on my audio so people can go to experts. But who would you say are the environmental experts out there that someone should Google or check out if this was a light bulb moment for them, that they're like, oh gosh, I really need to start looking at my home and my work and my car. Um,
It's it's hard because a lot of them stay under the radar.
or even groups. I know we mentioned EW,
WG is really, really good. I like them
right?
a lot. And I would follow those other organizations that I mentioned, the
Mhm.
um, ACAM
ASEA.
and yeah, they're really, really good on top of a lot.
Mhm.
Um, and again, like I'm a big proponent of like your local co-op extension and your health department because they are going to have their ears to the ground to what's happening in your county. So when I first moved to Tampa, I called my local health department and I said, "What are some of the contaminants you're finding in the water that I need to be concerned with so I can go test my water?" And mine was like arsenic was a big one. So so I would reach out to them if you want to get like more information. And a lot of times they'll have like toxicologists come talk. You can get them to, and you can get information to toxicologists to get more information on that. And then from like a physician standpoint, I would probably look up the ones that are associated with those organizations and then see if they have any like trainings or any information like blogs and things like that.
Yeah, I know. I think it's IFM, Integrative Functional Medicine Org. They have a directory of functional medicine, integrative medicine physicians, and I think they tag them by their specialty. So if someone is they're a functional medicine physician and they're expert in mold, that will be on there. If they're an expert on allergies or environmental exposures, that should be on there. That would be a good place to start, ifm.org. Um, but yeah, we're not trying to plug anyone here. We're just saying there are so many people like Lindsay and her husband that have deep dived into this area of concern and really educated themselves. Why not start with someone like them um, to guide you back to wellness? Anything else as far as workshops that the consumer could go to? I know there's things in the practitioner space, but I don't know if there's things in the consumer space. I know we have a Whole Foods in our area, and I know we had a Green Acres, which was a uh, you know total organic food store that would do classes on different subjects. But you really have to search for those.
You do. And I
The
mean,
library would have resources.
the library, yeah, like, you know, a lot of times I feel like there's a lot of fear-based ones where it's like like it scares you and you're like, ah. But if you just want to get like the information of like how to make your home healthier and things like that, um, I would I would look at IFM has some good materials. So does I was surprised when I started with Fullscript. They actually have a lot of like patient education.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
know that.
yeah, they have practitioner and patient education, but the patient education is like readable, and they have some on environmental toxins and like supporting your system.
Yeah.
So you could look at that.
Yeah. And then again, if you just Google environmental health and wellness, you'll find a ton of resources, and then it's up to you to vet through those. I know I just did a video on mold exposure in our home because thanks to working at Great Plains Laboratory, I did learn that I had 6 different types of mold in my basement and 7 different types in my bathroom. And that led to a remodel, just a bunch of stuff that I'm so glad that I did. And it also, doing the mold testing through professionals, I learned that my radon was like 20 times higher than it should have been. So we had to put a radon remediation system in, which was $900, but it probably saved my husband and our life, because if you are under that much exposure over the course, I think 5-10 years, you'll get lung cancer. So I'm just happy and trying to elevate this topic because you can't let something invisible harm your health. And you have to be really aware and your own advocate.
Yes, and you can do it. And I feel like what I used to hear a lot of patients say is it's very overwhelming.
Mhm.
And it is at first. But if you take it just step by step and, find your support system and supportive groups, there's tons out there. Um, you can do it. And and it doesn't, like I used to tell people, you don't have to throw everything out at one time. Like it's just a step by step process. And you don't have to eliminate everything that's toxic in your life because we're human beings and we're going to have some things that we don't want to give up. And that's okay. And I used to remember that old saying, you prepare the child for the path, not the path for the child, right? So you prepare your body for the path, not the path for the body. And so I'm not saying like live in whatever you want as long as you take your vitamins, but support your system. Lead a healthy lifestyle, reduce your stress as much as you can, eat colorfully and all your nutrients, and take your vitamins and minerals, and just really support your body in that process of trying to eliminate things that you can and you have control over. And um, don't undermine the power of your voice with people in your neighborhood and in your county and the policies, because that's where you're going to see the biggest change, right? We try to change these things in our home, and we work so hard to lead a good lifestyle, and then our neighbor next door is like spraying Roundup, and we inhale that, right? Our children's inhale that. The school system, right? Like they are spraying the grounds, like you said, Brenda. They're spraying our playgrounds, and that's getting into our waterways. Like everybody wants a beautiful landscape. Well, all of there's people that are putting that into place. And so if you can change that, you've
Mhm.
changed a huge component.
So, on a positive note, when do you graduate with your certificate in toxicology? How
This
long
is
do you have?
I'm on my last class.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
And then your resume will be even longer to read.
Oh, too many letters behind the name. I'm just going to drop everything and put RD.
I should have asked this before. Are you still doing any sort of private practice work or taking any clients on? Are you just concentrating on your education?
So I work at a physiatry clinic in Tampa, and I'll take on like a private patient here or there. But it's so busy.
You're pretty booked.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I will mention the websites where you can go find an excellent expert in environmental toxins to help you guide yourself through, your family through, your workplace through, and there's plenty of support out there. Um, I just wanted to close with this was on a news feed that came through today. I'm on a bunch of things, just trying to stay aware of how I can help people be healthier and more aware. But this was a landmark study by NEJM study that plastics are actually showing up in people's plaque in their arteries now. So I'll read this. This landmark study revealed that many patients with carotid artery disease might have microplastics and nanoplastics embedded in their plaque, which creates 4 to 5 times greater cardiac exposure for strokes or events. So we know that it's infiltrating our lives when it ends up in the ocean, it ends up in our water systems, and now it's ending up in our plaque in our systems. So we really do need to make some better choices and just be
Mhm.
aware for our own safety, and we want to live long-term quality lives,
Yeah.
not to have to deal with this. So, Lindsay, I really appreciate you joining us today and helping educate us. Thank you very much. Don't go
Thank you,
away.
Brenda. Okay.